This is Radar from the Entertainment Blog coming at you with another edition of Movie Reviews and Observation number 222. Almost a full week. I watched 6 movies. First movie I watched was a blockbuster movie called Fall Guy, starring Ryan Gosling, Emily Blunt. That also had Winston Duke, Teresa Palmer, Adam Waddingham, and Aaron Taylor Johnson. And it was almost 2 hours long because, you got all the special effects. From stunts, you got special effects from the movie they were working on, which was science fiction, not to give it away. And then, it's a big blockbuster movie, so that's why it's got long credits, but there's also a post-credit scene, not to spoil it. And the point of this movie is they decided to take the TV show The Fall Guy that was on years ago and give the original Fall Guy and another actress a cameo in the movie. But it's about this guy is a stunt man, and he got pretty good at it. And then, of course, he was used for the same actor, and Aaron Taylor Johnson, of course, played it perfectly. An arrogant son of a gun who all thinks about himself and his clothing brand, him as a brand, everything is cologne. It's not just been him about an actor, and the fact that Ryan Gosling, quote unquote, resembled and looked like him, and it was a good idea, and he was getting good at it. Then, of course, unfortunately, what happens is a major injury happens to him, and he's done. And he gets recruited by the producer of the actor, that's Adam Waddingham's character, to work on a movie. It happens to be his ex-girlfriend's one that he pushed away after the accident. So, of course, he thinks he was asked, but he wasn't. It's a whole plot that you have to watch to see, what the real reasons why that he was brought onto the set from whoever. But the whole point is he's trying to win back his girlfriend from the past, save the movie because he's asked to figure out what happened to the actor, he's missing. And in order to finish the movie, because it's the first time his girlfriend went from camera operator to director, that he wants to prove that A, he's back as a stuntman, but B, that he's worthy to date her. At the same time, save the movie because he wants her to be successful, even if they eventually don't end up together. So it's a little cheesy with the romantic stuff throughout the movie. They played the same song over and over, just different versions of it. I Was Made to Love You, I think, whatever it was, and could be wrong quoting it, but it seemed like that song was played too many times, just different versions, and it's not inappropriate. It's PG-13, so it's not that inappropriate that teenagers can definitely watch this movie. And it's an action-adventure movie where Ryan Gosling is trying to save the day. Very different from him being Ken and other movies he was in. It was a fun movie to watch. It's good to go on this ride and enjoy it, even if it's very crazy, very stupid sometimes, very cheesy and not realistic. But hey, that's the movie. It's him about being a stuntman and actually going through all this stuff and how he could survive all these major incidents, but he knows how to do whatever. So I liked it. Overall, it was pretty good. It gave you a side of Hollywood that you haven't seen before, so I liked it. I don't think it was the best movie I watched, but it was the type of movie that I can enjoy to watch, because it's rare to watch a movie that I actually enjoy. 90% of the movies I think that come out aren't that good. So this one is up there that it was a good enough movie. Then I watched the kids movie this week, and comparing the last kids week about the masks giving you powers, the Canterville Ghost was actually pretty clever. I think whoever decided to come up with this movie, I think it's a British movie. Not sure, because it's really hard to read the print on here, but barely 90-minute movie with credits. And it was a family moves from the United States to England to take over this haunted house, and every single person that lives in this haunted house is either gone insane or moved away. There's apparently a lady that works on the property, and there's a whole mystique about Stephen Fry, who's the ghost, is haunting his past and everything that goes with it. And Hugh Laurie is the devil in the movie. Freddie Highmore is this British duke who lives down the street. Imelda Staunton's in this movie. And the coolest thing for me, though, is David Harewood of Supergirl. That's where I know him from. No offense to Miranda Hart. Toby Jones was the pastor down the street, whatever it is. I just thought it was cool that he was playing an American guy who moved his family, and he's an inventor with the electric company, and this is before electricity is really big. And they're not afraid of the ghost because, he's a scientist, and they understand it, and the kids are just running around making problems. They twin boys. And it was a movie about her finding herself in a new country, but it was also about the family just accepting who she is, who they are, letting this ghost finally rest in peace and move on to the next world because he was trapped in the middle. And it was cool, even though David Harewood is British, they're hey, play an American in a British animated kids movie. So it was a good message. It was pretty good. There was a lot of famous voice actors, as I mentioned. This is another Freddie Highmore thing for him to do, that he did Post Good Doctor. So I liked it. Definitely recommend it for kids. Then I watched a movie that was written and directed by Ava DuVernay and produced, starring Aunjanue Ellis Taylor. And this movie goes on for like 2 hours and like it felt like 3 hours. It was a 2 hour and 20-minute movie with credits. The back of the movie does not even really give you the full description. And one thing I do want to point out is I don't know how many movies I see that John Bernthal is in where his character is killed really quickly in the movie, and then he's in flashbacks, or he's the brother who's dead in The Bear, spoiler alert, and he's not really in the show except for flashbacks. But this movie was her trying to connect racism to anti-Semitism, to homophobia, to the thing about the lower class level in India. And she's this retired journalist who Blair Underwood tries recruiting for her to come back to being a journalist and stuff and like that. And like Audrey McDonald's in this movie. Niecy Nash is in this movie. Vera Farmiga is also in this movie. Niecy Nash is, I don't know, her cousin, her friend. Either way, it was confusing. Her mother was sick, and they're looking at a nursing home, and then like a few scenes later, she's dead, and it's like, oh, terrible, she lost her mother and her husband. And just before that scene, John Bernthal character dies. They don't say how. They don't say the order it goes into. They're very confused when the two people in her life die, and she's like, well, I'm an author now. I'm not really a journalist, but she goes through all these to Germany and India to learn all these cultures, and she's on this mission. And then, of course, Niecy Nash, her cousin, whatever friend, also dies. It's sad. It's just she was trying to prove a hypothesis to write this book or this article, and she went on all these limbs to try to compare things, and it was so boring, so long. Sometimes it was complicated and over the top, and I didn't understand what the point of it was. So, no offense to this Ava DuVernay, who directed, produced, and wrote this, but your script was very confusing and very hard to follow. There's really no description except for a journalist who is grieving, tries to connect racism to every horrible atrocity that happened in the world. And as a Jewish person, I thought it was interesting to learn about stuff from the Nazis' perspective in Germany and the Holocaust, but outside of that, it was terrible. Then I watched the movie The Independent, which I didn't do on purpose. This just came in from the library the week of the election, where this Jodie Turner-Smith is a young hotshot reporter who works at a newspaper that Stephen Lang runs, and they keep getting new ownership. Her boyfriend is, Luke Kirby, who's on the political campaign for the Independent Party. Ann O'Dowd is, like, I don't know if the Republican, I'm going to assume old lady, or maybe Democrat. She's one of the people running in the normal party. And John Cena, they don't really explain if he's a former actor or former, military person, but he's running for Congress, and everyone thinking this guy is great. He's going to he's not in the middle, he's in the middle and he's side, and it's going to go great. And she knows it because her boyfriend's working on the campaign. But she finds these, like, stories, and she thinks that's either Republican or Ann O'Dowd's character is using the lottery to scam people and launder money, and then that company technically just bought the newspaper, so there's ramifications of the newspaper, the political election, and how they're really hoping that John Cena's character, because I think maybe he's in a military movie, but I mostly know John Cena for action, adventure, comedy, and sport, that he did a pretty good job in this movie, and it was barely an hour and 40-something minutes, so it's not like it went on for very long. And maybe this movie, and Brian Cox is the Pulitzer Prize winning journalist who takes her under his wing, and they try to work together to just get this final last story before he retires. And he was probably the best acting in this movie, no offense to anyone else. But it just shows that maybe even if the independent person seems to be clean and nice and it's a good story and you don't want a Republican or Democrat to be in office, sometimes even the independent person is dirty and has a criminal past or using criminal things to do things. So it was an interesting investigative journalistic movie and showing that maybe the independent person could also become president with a pretty big time cast, but it was average. And then I watched Immaculate with Sydney Sweeney, where, I don't know if it takes place present day. It was barely an hour and 20-something, maybe minutes, maybe an hour and 30, because sometimes the print on the back of these boxes are terrible. You can't read them. But it was a typical religious horror film where crazy things happen at a covenant. It's a young woman who goes to Covenant in small town Italy. Some guy recruits her there. She doesn't really speak the language. They take care of ill old nuns who are towards the end of their lives, and they may have mental issues and they may attack you. And then all of a sudden she becomes pregnant, and she doesn't know because she's never had sex. And it's a weird thing where apparently they've been experimenting to get Jesus' perfect genes implanted into women, and some woman wants to drown her because she wanted to be the one implanted with Jesus' disciple. Whatever it is, she finds it out. It's like a science experiment, and she tries to survive. She leaves. I don't know if she really survived and goes black. It was just like, cool, you get impregnated against your will. and they won't let you take it to the hospital. You got to fight these crazy, religious people to save your life. So not great, not good. Then I watched Ghostbusters: Frozen Empire. That it definitely, as it says, fun adventure for the whole family. Well, the other one was pretty fun to watch because bringing back the likes of Aykroyd, Hudson, and Bill Murray is fun. And you add some other characters to the movie like Paul Rudd, who's really funny. And now that he's an Avenger, now he's touching his hand to the Ghostbuster franchise. And I'm not a huge knowledgeable person of Carrie Conn, the woman who's apparently the original Moranis, whatever is, like daughter and stuff. That if that's his daughter and stuff, and these are his grandkids. I don't know how the aging works, if he's the same age as Bill Murray, that if Bill Murray had a kid who then became a Ghostbuster and then Bill Murray's grandkid. But yeah, the fact that like Harold Ramis and Rick Moranis, were the original two Ghostbusters, and it's like so it's Harold Ramis's grandkids and stuff like that. So it's pretty interesting. And then they also brought back, I think the last movie was Sigourney Weaver, but at least in this one they brought back Annie Potts, the receptionist, which is cool because she's a really good actress, from all the many famous television shows that she's been in, including her recent performance in Young Sheldon and Little Bo Peep in the Toy Story franchise. But yeah, they introduced Patton Oswalt as a crazy professor that works inside a library in a way, and they had Kumail Nanjiani, who has his ancestry of being a fire person. And you get the Finn guy, and you get McKenna Grace, who come from previous television shows. I think she's also from Young Sheldon. I could be wrong, and he was from Stranger Things. But it's nice to have a younger version of this stuff, including like that her Asian friend who works for Aykroyd in his weird shops and does videos, and this woman who works for Aykroyd, works for Ernie Hudson's scientific company with this British guy. And it's cool that he's using his money to continue the research of ghostbusting while Paul Rudd and his girlfriend and his girlfriend's kids are continuing to fight ghosts in New York and stuff. And then they wanted to make this even better. This was like a big time ghost villain that's from like another dimension, and it freezes things, and you need this whole entire cast. You need to bring back all the original Ghostbusters along with the current ones to help save the day. And it's barely like 2 hours, because it's like an hour and 40-ish to 50 minutes with a post-credit scene or so. So it probably was tied with Fall Guy, two very watchable movies, because they're quote-unquote big-time blockbuster movie, where even though like Paul Rudd's not the main character, but you got a movie with Paul Rudd and Bill Murray, you got a movie with Emily Blunt and Ryan Gosling. So it's definitely the two best movies I watched. I'd recommend both. You probably should go back and watch the Ghostbuster movie that came before Frozen Empire to understand these characters. I'll say the Canterville Go was a really good, actually, kids movie. So like sometimes the kids movies are not really well written. The Independent was interesting, and it was average, but it wasn't like the best movie I watched. Just Brian Cox's performance was great. And don't ever watch the movie Immaculate, and don't waste your time with Origin. Those are like two movies that should never been made. Thanks again for listening to another edition of Movie Observation number 222. For On the Radar Table Block, I'm Radar. See you guys next time.